Greetings and salutations, Exiles. As many of you know, I always follow these patch notes, and I've been going through them just to see what kind of what's new and what's not new, and if they fixed any of the stuff I had on my wish list. I got a wish list going, a playlist that's I got over 100 videos, and some of them are pretty profound. And that wish list is really based around game refinements or game. I wish I knew why this would pop up. Failed to connect. Um, but the basic refinement of existing systems, refinement and polishment. So like they badly need to do a torch rework. Um, and they badly need to do a deity shrine rework, and have it toward the tiered systems. And all of this information is really comes from about 1,500 hours of playtime on PVE, PvP, and PvE conflict servers. And so, a lot of the YouTubers they just create content. And they're like, oh, look at this new sword, or oh, this is where you get this shiny new torch. But they don't really get into the mechanics and what the deficit are, what causes the player population to leave. And if you kind of do a little homework and you just go on to the servers, you log into multiplayer and you do a search, half those servers are empty. So they got around 300 servers, and 150 of them are empty. And the player population at one point was around 35,000, and now it's kind of hovering around 3. So and they don't want to put any more money into the project, but they want to kind of continue to follow through on their obligations for the DLCs and stuff that they sold. But at this point, I just can't come back until some of these core project things are fixed. Until they rework some of the griefing that takes place because of the game imbalancing. It's one thing to fight on, but it's another thing when the game actually has systems in place that lets people exploit current mechanics to grief new players. And you have to protect the new players for that 2-week bubble in order to get them to be interested and get in kind of the mid to end game to where they stick around and start to develop that sense of community. And if you have systems in place that are unknowingly that cause the grief the player, they play for a week and then they bounce, then I mean, yeah, you sold them the game, but there's no follow-on DLCs and there's no recommended to friends. There's none of that stuff. So further ado, we're gonna go and we're kind of going to go over the patch notes. In this first part, they performance and stability. They implemented inventory optimization that should increase stability and performance. So I thought was interesting about this was I went to the test live server, and I experimented with some of the inventory options that I thought this was addressing, and it didn't. But I did a video on it, so I'm not really sure exactly what this is. Um, but maybe it's just the way that the cache loads in your inventory. Um, Say they fixed and then exploits and bug fixes. This is good. This is some of the stuff that I talked about that drives the early player base away. So here they fixed an issue that allow getting outside the playable area in some dungeons. So some people were figuring out how to cheese some of the boss fights. Fixed additional undermesting locations. This is always in the patch notes. This is always there. Like they're constantly finding places where people have figured out how to undermesh with new systems or new fountains or whatever. Like there's always some crazy weird thing that people figure out how to get underneath the map, and that's a constant fight for them. Um, Okay, fixed exploit regarding attributes. That's interesting. I had heard of some in the past, but I thought they were fixed long ago. So maybe there's a new exploit that would allow people to exploit attributes. Uh, Implement a new feature to validate attribute points spent to prevent possible exploits. This feature can be disabled in private servers. Oh, wow. So that's 2. They actually created a new system to do a fact check on attribute points. So that, that might explain some of the because I play on a no ping international server, and there's a lot of Chinese and Russians, and they don't hold to the same standards as a lot of other players. It's just about winning. Um, so that could be something that it might explain some of my previous videos in the past, actually. Okay, fix additional exploits regarding stacking building pieces. So this is interesting because they went through a major update, and this is actually tied into the undermeshing, because that's how people were used to get undo the undermeshing, is they would stack building pieces or kind of manipulate building pieces to push them under the ground. So this might tie into that. And also you're kind of like unfairly doubling up hit points to make it harder to be raided, but that's not. I think it's more tied in to do with the undermeshing. Fixed an exploit in regards to teleporting using the map room. I suspect this is the one where if you have your friend, I don't want to say what the exploit is, but I have a suspicion that this is, yeah, I think I know what this is. It's not like a malicious exploit, but I think I know what it is. New dungeons, new dungeons. Okay, they added the new wine collar. Discovered a new. Okay, new dungeon. Yeah, okay, whatever. New dungeon. Actually, I think it's pretty cool that they've added this, but I have mixed feelings about some of the new content. Sometimes I wish they would repolish some of the existing systems, because they can add 100 dungeons, but if they only got 500 players, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Um, okay, upgraded altars outside of rendering distance should no longer cause loss of stability on servers. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so they did a little performance update on the altars. Too bad they didn't like do a little, item optimization too on the altars. Add some, bone arrows for Yogg that gave a little bit of bleed damage. Um, okay, they did some crafting fixes. War paint accuracy now requires the correct die to craft. The crafting cost of cages and large cages has been adjusted. That's funny, because what's funny or ironic about this is that cages have no functional use in the game. They're strictly um, aesthetic appearance. They're just for looks, or like flair. You can't actually put thralls in them. And I've done a couple videos. If you type in you go to my channel and you type in thrall cages. I've done like 5 videos on this, trying to stick thralls in cages, and eventually they just respawn and go back to their starting point. So you can't actually cage anything. So I think it's interesting that they would go through and alter the cages when there are no actual application for them. Adjusted the crafting tools. Oh, adjusting the crafting cost for survival items. Okay. Added die button to the flawless Varian heavy Tarset. Tacet. Okay. Decreased crafting speed of twine in player inventory from 1 to 2 seconds. So the way that I interpret that is, if they're decreasing it, they should say from 2 to 1 seconds. This is a little confusing here. I think this needs to be changed from decreased crafting speed of twine in inventories player from 2 to 1 seconds, but what, I don't know. Crafting the set idle no longer grants the manifestation of zeal. Okay, so they've taken away one of the multipliers that you need to craft a god, because of these manifestations of zeal. think are what allow you to. You gotta get 600 of. I forget what it is. It's 600 of them, 300 of them. I forget. To craft a god. So they by crafting in the idols no longer give you that zeal. So you have to find other. I've been running through bases and I'll see like thousands of these things on the ground, and they'll lag you out. So because they would give zeals and people would just keep crafting them, crafting them, crafting them, and then over the course of like a year, they don't know what to do with them. So they just stick them everywhere, and they like load down the server with these things. Combat fixes, two-handed swords and heavy combo have been improved, making it more difficult for players to be interrupted while performing each attack. So that's good. That's really good. Hanneman, humanoid, non-bosses, undead enemies can now be staggered. I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like undead should be their own stuff. You know what I mean? Because they're undead, so they're not going to be like the pain isn't something that they factor into. So I kind of have issues with the whole staggering mechanic and how it's implemented. I feel like the stagger mechanic should be on the third attack in a combo, not the first attack in a combo. But yeah, it no longer you can now stagger undead, you know, regular enemies. AI and thrall fixes. This right here is like the biggest thing for the game. This is huge. If they could get this dialed in, and really this text instead of being 4 bullets needs to be like 12 bullets. Um, okay, NPCs could get stuck or walk under the mesh in Islet Lake. This has been resolved. I don't remember Islet Lake. I don't remember where that's at. They need to do this in the unnamed city. The problem is this exact same thing happens when you fight the Red Mother. Because her model is so big, it'll actually push the thralls underneath the map right there when you fight the Red Mother. Um, okay, fixed a spot in the Scarlet shortcut which could not be reached by NPCs. I don't remember that. Resolved additional spots in which boss encounters could be cheesed. Okay, that kind of speaks to what they talked about up here. It talks about up there. The Black Corsair Elite NPC can't be converted into a thrall anymore as intended. So I did do that. I was able to thrall one of these out. It took me. I got like 3 videos on them. They're hilarious. It took me like a half hour. I think what they did is they instead of actually like making her immune, they just gave her like a million consciousness, and I just sent my thrall to work, and he was able to do it in like 45 minutes. But the sad thing is though is her stats are not that good. She's comparable to like a tier 3 volcano thrall. I got all videos on this, so it's if you guys want to you just search Corsair Elite and you'll see the videos. They're actually pretty good. Acid arrows now do 2 damage per tick. Okay, so they were 10, they bumped them down to 1, and now they've upped them to 2. The problem with this, and then where this really comes into effect, is this is where they eat gas mask off. And this is where one of those systems where they implement a system and they don't realize the negative effect. So when they implemented this system, they're thinking player versus player. And they're thinking that you'll use this arrow in a combat scenario and you'll shoot it at your opponent and you can eventually burn his mask off, and then you can melee him or use gas clouds on him in a combat, gas arrows in a combat scenario, and then ultimately add more dynamic to the PvP fight. But what really happens is they use these gas arrows to shoot all your thralls at your base and raid you offline, and then basically kill all your thralls because one arrow will take an 8 armor value mask off, and they can now then within 10 stacks or 10 gaseous orbs, you can kill like 25 thralls. So with no outward resources, you can literally delete somebody's, like 150 hours worth of work. The time it takes to put all those thralls through the wheel, all the armor it takes to craft, to put on them, all the swords, everything. And the problem with that is the AI is so janky. If your archers are shooting the the opponent, because you can only have four AI at a time on a target. So if your archers are shooting and they're just standing behind a wall, all the melee thralls are not going to do anything, and so you can cheese the system. One guy can cheese, and doesn't matter how big your fortress is or how much thousands of hours you put into your fortress. Some dingling can go in there and completely wreck you within an hour and a half, and basically delete like 500 hours of work um, through his 5 hours of work. And that's the part that I talk to extensively. Is there are unknowingly systems in this game that allow, there's not enough defensive mechanism to hold what you got, because ultimately you give it up all the time. You just give up everything that you've collected, and all your time is wasted. And so they need to balance those systems out. Like, it's not a bad idea, but they don't factor in how it affects base defense. You got to have your base defense. Um, okay, enough on that. I kind of segued and started to rant on some of the issues that I have with, master reinforcement kits no longer reduce resource gathering of of a tool to 0, but it causes it to weight by 3. But it increases its weight by 3. God, okay. Um. Okay. So you're increasing your amount of resources, and what it's doing is it making it heavier. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. General bug fixes. Um, Dong-tastic news. The potion of empowerment works again. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Um, Fixed a visual imperfection in some items of the Riddle of Steel and Blood and Sands DLC pack. I haven't seen any visual imperfection. I don't know what that is. Removed head bobbing while flying in first person view. Okay. The Sword of Inraka now correctly grants its grit bonus. Didn't realize that was broken. Shield of... Okay, so these are the two items that come from your Pirate Corsair Queen in the Buccaneers Bay. So grants survival bonus. So I guess they had... So this is that greenish kind of bronze gold shield, and this is the sword, that kind of Egyptian looking sword that you can get from turning in pearls. Um, it is no longer possible to avoid falling damage by falling onto NPCs. Okay. Fixed several visible and... Okay, they fixed a bunch of the emotes. Okay. Terrain and environment fixes. Fixed a number of issues with world collisions and spots on the map where players and NPCs could get stuck. That's good. That's actually really good. Um, Fix minor visual imperfections in different spots of the map. So it sounds like they just spent a bunch of time trying to fix undermeshing, and it just gone through and tried to polish up as much stuff that, like, they just dumped a ton of time in the map trying to fix it to where it can be less exploited. Um, okay, corrected an area in the Temple of Frost where players could die to a cursed wall. Oh, I do not remember that. Actually, I do. Okay, I know where that's at. Um, and improve general performance in a few spots of the map. That's super vague. That's super vague. Super vague. Okay, it is no longer possible to build inside the camp east of the sinkhole. Sinkhole east. Okay, I know what they're talking about. Okay. Um, Animations and cinematic fixes. Added a new idle animation for player characters. That's actually really good. That's actually really good. So that way you know if someone's AFK or not. That's actually a huge immersion kind of quality of life fix. Uh, Here's another. This is another huge. This doesn't mean anything. Generally improved player animations. That doesn't mean anything. Like that's fluff. That's fluff right there. UI and text. So that's user interface and text fixes. Okay, so they did some spell check, fix a couple good typographs. Okay, fix some emote menus. This looks like a variety of camera mods. Added a new option in the emotes to allow players to stop players to ongoing emote. Fix an issue that would show okay, I don't know what that is. Audio fixes. Okay. Um, yeah, I don't really care about that. But community tools. Yeah, so it looks like kind of enclosure on this. It looks like the big thing here is really the map. They did a lot of map fixing. They went through and they probably had to do that because they had to go through and do some map editing to see stitch this dungeon in. And so while they were, had the Unreal, dev kit open, when they were stitching this in or trying they had to recut the map and do some meshing, and they probably fixed a bunch of other issues that were kind of on the plate for map editing, and well, since they already were in those tool sets. I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking to my thoughts, and I'm not speaking to what's actually happening. But that's kind of how I think it went down. Um, yeah, there's not to be honest. There's not a whole lot here. There's another little hot fix that I'll read through in a different video. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching. I think you're gonna get more information out of the actual me testing some of this stuff out on the test live server. But yeah, thanks for watching.